Overwhelmed, I nearly cried out. I never expected I'd actually be reborn. Beside me, Ethan kept rambling on and on. Emily, the company's just getting started. I'm really exhausted. I want you to stay home, handle the housework, and take care of me. That's all I need. And besides, it's because I feel bad seeing how hard your job is. So many women would be jealous of your position. Stay home and do housework. He made it sound nice, but let's be honest. What he really wanted was for me to become his maid. Seeing that I stayed silent, he grew annoyed. He threw a stack of papers down and stared at me coldly. Emily, did you even hear me? I want you to go to the Research Institute and submit your resignation today. The joy I just felt from being given a second chance in life vanished in an instant. I'm currently earning 9,000 yuan a month. If I stay home and do housework, how much are you planning to pay me? I'm the first graduate student from my village. I work at a government research institute with a respectable title and a solid income. They even assigned me housing. Meanwhile, Ethan's company, only just registered, hasn't made a single profit in the past 3 months. His eyes flickered as if trying to avoid mine, but his tone remained arrogant. We're married. Isn't it your duty to take care of me? You're really going to argue with me over a bit of money? You know the company just started. There's only enough cash left to pay the employees for 6 months. And now you're asking about money? Once the business grows, I'll hire a maid for you. Why would I make you suffer? I let out a cold laugh. So, what you really want is a maid you don't have to pay for. Ethan froze for a second, then raised his voice sharply in anger. What do you mean, a maid I don't pay for? That's nonsense. Are you saying I'm mooching off you? I rolled my eyes. Wow, that's an ugly way to put it, but if the shoe fits. He snapped. The company is mine, but it's yours, too, isn't it? Once we go public, won't you be the boss's wife? You'll be admired, won't you? Admired? In my past life, I didn't even get to keep my life. What good would admiration have done me? Ethan, stop selling me fantasies. Right now, you live in my home, eat my food. I didn't marry you to save a failing entrepreneur. And now you want me to play maid, too? No way. Fine, Emily. He snapped. Don't regret it. If you won't stay home and do the housework, then we'll get a divorce. With that, he slammed the door and stormed out. A heavy weight settled in my chest. And then I couldn't help but laugh. I set down the divorce papers I had already prepared, turned around, and walked away. Ethan used to be a rich kid. His parents' business failed, and after both of them passed away, he was left with nothing but debt. Unable to face the pressure from creditors, he ran off to hide with some distant relatives in the countryside, who happened to be my neighbors. That's how we got to know each other. After the court declared his parents' company bankrupt and all debts were cleared, he didn't leave. Instead, he chose to stay. He said he liked me and wanted to marry me. He told me he wanted to revive our village's traditional liquor brewing techniques and lead the villagers to prosperity. So, after we got married and with support from the village, Ethan opened a liquor sales company. But even good wine is hard to sell if it's hidden away in a back alley. In the first 3 months, the company only received a few scattered small orders. The business account had just enough funds left to keep operations running for 6 months. He couldn't even pay out the employee bonuses he had promised. To cut costs, Ethan decided to streamline the team and keep only a few core staff. He made it sound nice saying he wanted me to stay home and do housework, but in reality, he wanted me to take over logistical support for his company. In my past life, I compromised for the sake of our home. I quit my job at the institute, took care of his daily needs, and worked at the company, too, doing front desk work and customer service. I handled customer service, admin, and cleaning all by myself, juggling multiple roles every single day like a spinning top that never stopped. Eventually, after Ethan and I poured all our efforts into the business, the company finally began to stabilize and find its footing. While rushing to fulfill a large order, Ethan assigned me to the production line to help out. That day, I was placing glass bottles onto the conveyor belt when the machine suddenly malfunctioned and came to a stop. In the blink of an eye, the bottles exploded one by one. A shard of glass flew straight into my right eye. I went blind. The worker responsible for maintaining the machine got down on his knees and begged Ethan for forgiveness. In the end, Ethan merely deducted that season's bonus from the worker and used it to cover my medical expenses. As for compensating me directly, he didn't say a single word. He's got aging parents and young children to support, Ethan told me. His family's under a lot of pressure. We can't, in good conscience, demand compensation from him. Then he added, it's just your right eye. You can still see out of your left, can't you? Even if you're blind or disabled, you'll always be the same in my heart. I know everything you've done for me. I'll love you forever, babe. Swayed by his sweet talk, I gave in again. The incident caused quite a stir in the village. I became the model wife in everyone's eyes, kind, understanding, supportive. The perfect woman behind a successful man. Ethan, on the other hand, was praised as a great boss, a man of compassion and responsibility. For a time, he became a role model for many young girls in the village. As he basked in their praise, I kept sacrificing again and again for his sake. He expected me to treat every employee like family. When someone got sick, I not only had to care for them, but also cover their shift. When an employee's child fell ill, I dropped my own work to help babysit. If someone was heartbroken and depressed, I had to be their personal therapist. His prestige in the village kept rising. He was all smiles and generosity toward everyone except me. The way he looked at me grew colder and colder. Eventually, I packed my things and moved back into the dormitory at the research institute. My colleague, Lisa, looked stunned. Emily, Ethan's okay with you staying in the dorms? I hesitated for a second, then said casually, Ethan wants a divorce. I'm staying here for now. Lisa's eyes went wide. Are you out of your mind? Why would he want to divorce you? Ethan's such a good man. To everyone around us, Ethan had always appeared to be a loving husband. He was the perfect city boy with overseas education who graciously settled in our village to start a business. I, on the other hand, was a local girl born and raised in the countryside who lost my father young and was raised by my mother alone. Most people believed I wasn't worthy of him. Fortunately, I had a graduate degree and a decent job. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be qualified to carry his shoes. Ethan wanted me to quit my job and stay home to do housework. I refused. Lisa looked so shocked she nearly dropped her coffee. Is he insane? You're a grad school alum. Quit your job to do housework? Where would you even live? That apartment was assigned to you by the institute. Her words made my heart clench. If someone else could see something so obvious, why couldn't he? Or maybe he saw it clearly and just chose to ignore it. Maybe he was deliberately stepping on my future so he could use me as a stepping stone for his dreams. In my last life, I pinched every penny to support Ethan through the hardest times. I believed that once the business stabilized, my good days would finally come. But when I confronted him while making only 3,000 yuan a month, asking why I was paid so little, he replied, "Go ask around. Back office staff don't make much, and besides, you're only working part-time. I can't favor you just because you're my wife. A growing company needs rules and structure. It's not all about what I say. As the boss's wife, you should lead by example." Back then, I was so naive I actually thought he made sense. But now, all I want is to go back and slap some sense into my past self. Tears welled up in my eyes. I took a deep breath and said, "Fine. I agree to the divorce. After all, no woman should ever back herself into a dead end for the sake of a man. You're right, aren't you?" Lisa was known as the loudspeaker of the research institute, so I figured it wouldn't take long before news of my divorce spread like wildfire. After work, I saw Ethan waiting for me at the gate from a distance. "Emily, how can you be so heartless?" he shouted angrily. "After all these years of marriage, you're just going to end it like that?" His yelling immediately caught the attention of the crowd nearby. People began to slow down, curious about the scene unfolding. "But didn't you say that if I refused to quit my job and stay home, we'd get divorced?" I shouted back, loud and clear. The onlookers started whispering among themselves. Ethan's face darkened instantly. "I just wanted us to be united as a couple." I wanted you to care more about me, he said. And in order to care for you, I have to give up my career and revolve my entire life around you. I shot back. What century do you think we're living in? Are you still dreaming about being some kind of emperor? Besides, I added, is it really about me staying home to do housework, or are you just trying to drag me into working for free at your company? Tell me, who here would want to work without pay? I deliberately raised my voice so the whole crowd could hear. Ethan's face turned green, then white, completely exposed and humiliated. His expression twisted with frustration. Isn't this just because Emily earns more than him and he feels emasculated at home? Someone in the crowd said. Exactly. What kind of man makes his wife quit a high-paying job just to stay home? Someone else added. Wasn't he some rich kid before? Now that he's fallen from grace, he can't take it anymore. More and more people joined the discussion, their voices growing louder. Ethan looked like he could barely stand under the weight of the embarrassment. Emily, don't take my kindness for granted. He snapped. If you're really so unwilling, then fine. Let's get divorced tomorrow. There are plenty of women who'd love to take care of me. You don't believe me? I could wave a finger and line them up from here to the edge of the village. I hope you mean it. I said coldly, not hesitating for a second. Soon, everyone in the village knew that Ethan and I were getting a divorce. Emily, how could you be so immature? The village chief came to my house and started scolding me. Ethan's been working so hard for the sake of our village. Can't you be a little more understanding? That's not right, chief. My mom snapped, clearly annoyed. She had never liked Ethan much to begin with. Even if Ethan is working for the village, can the village guarantee my daughter's happiness? And you, how can you be so blind? The chief turned to my mom, trying to pull rank. Couples fight at the head of the bed and make up at the foot of it. You elders shouldn't get involved in young couples' issues. Then why are you here interfering in our marriage today? I asked, annoyed. The chief was so angry he stomped his foot. Ethan showed up, too, his nose still in the air like always. Emily, he said, if you apologize to me right now, I'll forgive you. I laughed, out of sheer disbelief more than anything. Let's just go get the divorce. No one needs to apologize to anyone. Ethan's face immediately fell. The smugness he wore just moments ago vanished completely. The village chief angrily tapped his pipe a few times. Emily, have you lost your mind? Ethan's company has such great potential. Why can't you see that? You should quit your job and be the good wife who supports him. I've got a good job of my own. I said firmly. Why should I give it all up to orbit around a man every day? Chief, did I study all these years for nothing? I narrowed my eyes. If I remember right, your granddaughter Sophie is graduating from college this year, isn't she? Maybe she can intern at Ethan's company. The chief clearly froze, stumbling over his words. Sophie's major doesn't really fit. She's not a good match for that kind of work. Then maybe your daughter-in-law can quit her job as the village accountant and become Ethan's assistant. I continued. With him, she's bound to make a fortune. The village party secretary quickly stood up. The company isn't owned by our family. My daughter-in-law would never be foolish enough to become someone's assistant. Exactly. The company's not mine either. So why are you all pressuring me to quit my job? I said, holding back tears. Do you think I'm an idiot? Then I couldn't hold it in anymore. I burst into loud sobs. What kind of world is this? I have a perfectly good job, and you're all forcing me to give it up. Is it just because I lost my dad early? Bullying my mother and me in broad daylight? Ethan's eyes went wide. He couldn't believe what he was seeing, me crying and yelling like some unruly woman from the streets. He had chosen me back then precisely because I was educated, calm, and different from the other village girls. My mom looked uncomfortable and pulled at my hand. Maybe I should go instead. But I wrapped my arms tightly around her. Mom, I've failed you as a daughter. Your lumbar disc herniation has been left untreated for so long. You haven't even had surgery. From now on, you're staying home. You're not allowed to lift a finger. She immediately understood and began crying along with me. Let everyone here be the judge. Their granddaughter and daughter-in-law are treated like treasures, but my daughter's treated like she's worthless. forcing her to quit her job. How is that even legal? In my past life, my mom was heartbroken for me. She used to go to Ethan's company to clean, working herself to exhaustion until she couldn't even stand up straight. Ethan never gave her a single cent. When her back problems got worse, he wouldn't even shell out 10,000 yuan for her surgery. In the end, her health deteriorated and she passed away from stress and sadness. In this life, I refuse to let that happen again. My mom and I must get out of the pit Ethan dug for us. Getting to live again, I've come to understand that when you keep giving in to others, they'll only make your life harder. When you keep accommodating them, they'll keep pushing, hurting you more and more. But this time, I finally found the courage to push back. Just as I was about to escalate things further, someone in the crowd suddenly shouted, "What you're doing is outrageous. This is a total violation of the law. The state has made it clear. No one can take away a woman's right to work." Through my tears, I looked up and saw a tall, firm figure standing in the crowd. His posture was upright like a pine tree, his gaze steady and determined, and a quiet authority radiated from his presence. It was Ryan Lin, the new leader transferred to our institute. "Emily, don't be afraid," he said. "The institute is fully aware of your situation. We've got your back." He squeezed through the crowd and quickly stepped forward, grabbing my hand and shielding me behind him like a guardian angel. A rush of warmth spread through my chest. "This is absurd," he continued. "Emily is one of the institute's key talents. No one can force her to resign." His voice rang clear and sharp, leaving no room for argument. Ethan and the village chief instinctively took a step back. "Well, if it's just about helping out Ethan, I'll go." A girl's voice rang out from the crowd. It was Sophie, the chief's granddaughter. Her cheeks were flushed pink and her face lit up with girlish shyness. "I was just about to start my internship anyway. I can go work at Ethan's company as an assistant. I can handle it." The village chief was so flustered he started stomping his feet. "Go home. What can a little girl like you even do?" "Grandpa, I'm not a kid anymore," Sophie insisted. "And helping Ethan is helping the whole village, isn't it?" She looked at Ethan with bright, hopeful eyes, full of admiration. Sophie was one of Ethan's many admirers, always finding excuses to hover around him. But out of respect for the village chief, Ethan had always treated her like a little sister. "Actually, Chief," someone said sarcastically, "having Sophie help out gives Ethan an extra pair of hands for free. If Ethan's willing, why not?" A smile finally crept across Ethan's face. The village chief let out a long sigh and walked off, his face dark as thunder. "Emily, fine," Ethan said coldly. "We don't need to get divorced, at least not yet. I'll let this go for now." Then his face shifted back to gloom and blame. "I've worked so hard for the company, for our future. I'm doing this for us, for your happiness. But instead of being grateful, you want to divorce me? What's wrong with you?" I almost clapped out loud at his shameless ability to twist right and wrong. "Ethan," I snapped. "You live in my house and eat my food. This so-called happiness of yours is built entirely on me. You keep sucking me dry and asking for more. And now you even want me to throw away my future to support your dreams? You're selfish, just a professional leech hiding behind big talk." Ethan's face twisted with rage. The fire in his eyes looked ready to explode. "Emily, I thought you were a kind, understanding woman. Turns out it was all an act. You're nothing but a cruel, bitter, selfish person." I gave a careless smile. "Then let's get divorced. Otherwise, who knows what kind of nastier things I might do next, like spreading the word that you're nothing but a freeloading man-child." Ethan's face darkened even more. His fists clenched tightly, as if he was ready to swing at me at any moment. Ryan instinctively stepped closer and shielded me behind him even more firmly. But I stood my ground, my spine straight, my eyes locked on Ethan with defiance. "Don't make me lose all respect for you, Ethan. You're the one who brought up divorce in the first place." After a long, tense silence, Ethan slowly loosened his fists. He looked at me, then glanced at Sophie standing nearby. A flicker of disdain flashing through his eyes. "Fine. Let's divorce. I'd love to see what man would want a woman who's already been divorced." Before I could reply, Ryan spoke up, voice firm and clear. A pearl in the dust will shine again when unearthed. Congratulations, Emily. But what a pity. Ethan never saw my worth. After I received the divorce certificate, Ethan moved out of my apartment. Word was, he moved in with Sophie. I cried in my mother's arms for a long time. In my past life, I gave up countless opportunities because of Ethan. Not long after I quit the research institute, one of the projects I had been leading was selected as a national key research initiative. It received 2 million yuan in funding and attracted attention and investment from several companies. My former assistant quickly rose to become the institute's rising star and eventually was promoted to deputy director. Meanwhile, I spent my days juggling housework and working at a tiny company with a dozen people. I did the hardest jobs earning the lowest salary. Back then, I believed my sacrifices for love were worthwhile. I believed Ethan would love me forever, just like he promised. But I never imagined that the moment he started wearing suits, hiring attractive female assistants, entertaining clients at high-end venues, and giving grand speeches about his success back in the village, I would become the person he most wanted to hide. He said my presence made things awkward, that I'd scare off clients. His assistant said I was old, ugly, and blind in one eye, not worthy of standing next to someone as handsome and successful as Ethan. Villagers whispered, how could a successful man like Mr. Ethan be married to a disabled woman? What a shame. Everyone believed I wasn't good enough for him. For Ethan, I had sacrificed my health, my career, my everything. And once I had nothing left to give, I became disposable. In Ethan's eyes, I had lost all value. He didn't bother hiding his flirtations with his assistants, stayed out all night at massage parlors, and openly rekindled things with his childhood sweetheart the moment she returned to the country. When I saw them walking out of a luxury hotel hand in hand, my already numb heart felt like it had been ripped apart. How could he do this to me? What did I ever do to deserve this? I snapped. I lunged at his childhood sweetheart like a crazed animal, tearing at her in frenzy, unleashing all the bitterness and rage I had kept bottled up for years. We struggled all the way from the hotel entrance to the riverside. Emily Taylor, you're an educated woman. How could you act like some street lunatic? Ethan shouted, glaring at me with a mix of anger, disgust, and disappointment in his eyes. His childhood sweetheart took the opportunity to slap me hard, pushing me as she screamed, you ugly freak. No wonder Ethan dumped you. Even the beggars wouldn't want someone like you. I froze for a moment, instinctively turning to Ethan, hoping desperately for him to deny her words. But he looked away as if even glancing at me disgusted him. The next moment, she gave me a fierce shove. I lost my balance, tumbled over the low guardrail, and fell into the river. And Ethan, he didn't even turn back. His expression looked like someone who had finally gotten rid of a mutt. He walked away with her without hesitation. That's how I drowned, alone, abandoned. But heaven had mercy. I was given a second chance at life. This time, I will never lose myself for anyone. After the divorce, I poured all of my energy into my research. I worked day and night, barely resting until my project was finally approved as a national key research initiative. Only then did I let out a long breath of relief. I've always believed that the harder you work, the luckier you become. And as luck would have it, I met Ryan Lin. He had quietly supported me all along, but in this life, I made a promise to myself. I would rewrite the tragic fate of my past through relentless hard work. So, I kept his kindness in my heart, never letting it distract me from my goals. What I didn't expect was that just 2 months after the divorce, Ethan showed up again. Emily, he said, I'm giving you one more chance. Let's get back together. He stood at my door looking a mess. His clothes wrinkled, hair disheveled, but his tone was still as arrogant as ever. Like he thought I should be grateful he even showed up. What made him think I'd say yes? I'll admit, after my father passed away, there was a time when I desperately wanted someone to protect me, to shelter me from the world. But after being reborn, I finally understood. If you lean on a mountain, it can collapse. If you lean on a person, they might leave. Relying on yourself is the only thing you can count on. I'm doing just fine on my own. You should go, I told him, and don't ever come back. Ethan looked stunned. You really don't want to get back together? I don't. Not even a little. I was just hoping you'd come so I could slam the door in your face. Honestly, I regret not divorcing you sooner. After a long silence, he lowered his head. But I still want to remarry you. That girl, Sophie, she clings to me every day. Her temper is terrible. She's nothing like you. I laughed. You mean she's not as obedient? Not as easy to control? Not as willing to work herself to the bone for you? Is that it? My voice rose with emotion. I'm not some dog you can call and dismiss whenever you want. Getting back together with you? That'll never happen. Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but before he could get a word out, Ryan appeared behind me. He stepped forward without hesitation, once again putting himself between us. Security, Ryan called firmly, escort this man out. Put him on the permanent blacklist. He is not allowed back here. If he shows up again, call the police immediately and charge him with harassment. Ethan's eyes narrowed in fury, but he turned and left, clearly unwilling to accept defeat. Ridiculous. Where did he get the confidence to think I'd come crawling back just because he finally tossed me a bone? I gave up everything for him in my last life. Now that I've finally escaped that cage, why on earth would I ever walk back into it? Not long after that, rumors started flying around the village. Ethan had married Sophie. Apparently, he'd been stressed out over some failed orders, and Sophie offered to stay late at the office to help. One thing led to another, and Sophie ended up pregnant. What they didn't expect was that the company's security cameras had caught everything on video. Gossip spread like wildfire. Under pressure from the village chief, Ethan had no choice but to take responsibility and marry her. At first, I thought with the chief backing her, Sophie would never end up like me. But fate had a way of repeating itself. Sophie worked herself to exhaustion every day. Within just 6 months of marriage, her youthful glow had vanished from her face. Then, 8 months in, she was injured during a production accident, just like me. A worker's mistake shattered a glass bottle, and a shard flew into her right eye. She went blind in one eye. At the time, Ethan was holed up at the village chief's house being confronted by members of the village committee. The guy's got elderly parents and a kid to feed, the chief argued. His family's under a lot of pressure. We can't in good conscience demand compensation. As usual, Ethan played the noble, compassionate boss. But then, smack, a loud slap rang out. Sophie's mother, eyes red and burning with rage, lunged at Ethan like a wild animal. Is that what you call being human? She screamed. My daughter married you in good faith, and now she's lost an eye. And you dare say we're the ones being heartless? You're nothing but scum. Ethan panicked. Curled up and trembling, Ethan didn't dare say a single word. Pay up. Compensate my granddaughter for her eye, Sophie's grandmother shouted. The village chief, who had been silent all this time, looked grim. He finally spoke, and the onlookers quickly echoed his demand. Compensate her. He deserves to lose everything he owns. This doesn't end until you cough up at least 200,000 yuan. Otherwise, your company won't be welcome in this village anymore. The chief's declaration hit like a thunderclap, stirring a wave of unrest in the crowd. Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. His mouth opened, closed, opened again, but in the end, he said nothing. He just nodded over and over like a puppet. I stood among the crowd, feeling a stabbing pain in my chest. So, this is how it was. Ethan had known I was easy to manipulate, so he didn't even bother discussing compensation when I lost my eye. All I got was a mere 2,000 yuan for medical expenses. But now that Sophie had lost her right eye, she stayed home to rest and wasn't expected to lift a finger, not even to cook or clean. Ethan took on all the housework himself. I couldn't help but envy her. For the way things turned out for her, for having family who stood up for her, who gave her strength. Unlike me in my previous life. Even after I went blind in one eye, I still had to clean the house and work at the company like nothing had happened. Ethan never changed. But this time, he didn't earn the reputation of a kind and generous man like he did before. It finally hit me. Everything I sacrificed in my past life, all those so-called noble choices, were just tools Ethan used to win public sympathy. He used my love to strip away my life piece by piece, leading me toward destruction step by step. The pain in my chest was suffocating, and as I turned to walk away, I collapsed into a warm, solid embrace. Struggling to open my eyes through my haze, I looked up and saw Ryan holding me steadily. "If you're tired," he whispered softly near my ear, "just close your eyes and rest. I'll be here with you." That gentle voice cracked something open inside me, and I finally allowed myself to relax and fall asleep in peace. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back in a familiar home. I looked around in confusion until I saw Ryan beside me, holding a bowl of warm porridge in one hand and a spoon in the other, lifting it toward my mouth. "Have some porridge," he said kindly. "No matter what happens, your health comes first." Tears spilled down my cheeks. In my past life, Ethan had never even entered the kitchen for me, let alone cooked a bowl of porridge or offered me a single glass of water. After I lost vision in one eye and was discharged from the hospital, he coldly said, "Don't be so dramatic. It's just one eye. Stop lazing around. Sweep the floor, wash the laundry, and cook something nice for me tonight. Tomorrow, go to the office and catch up on what you missed today. You think employees won't notice if you take time off for a little scratch?" Back then, I always put him first. I couldn't bear to let him lift a finger. I gave up everything for him. But what did that mean to him? Some say love comes like a tornado, sudden and overwhelming. Sometimes, falling in love is just that simple. Looking at Ryan now, with his gentleness and care, I felt myself slowly fall. "I want to transfer to the logistics department," he said one day. "That way, I'll have more time to take care of you. You focus on your research. That's what you're best at." His dark eyes sparkled as he looked at me, then said clearly, "Emily, I like you. In my eyes, you're brilliant. You're the most unique person I've ever met. You shouldn't be weighed down by trivial burdens." More than his sudden confession, I was even more stunned by his decisive action. He quickly filed a transfer request and even personally recommended me as the lead researcher on a new project. And this time, I chose to believe in love again. I found the courage to walk into marriage once more, this time with Ryan by my side. After we got married, Ryan treated me with deep respect. He reminded me that I was never anyone's accessory. He backed those words with actions. He truly became my support system. He never let me do any housework, not even washing a single pair of socks. Ryan would often hold my hand for a long time, heart aching for me. While I spent most of my days buried in research, often confined to the lab, he would prepare all kinds of nourishing soups. He wouldn't leave until he watched me finish every last drop. On rainy days, he stood at the lab entrance for 1 or 2 hours holding an umbrella, waiting for me to come out. When I had business trips, he would volunteer to accompany me as my assistant, meticulously packing my luggage and handling all the small details. People around us often joked that Ryan had given up his dignity as a man for love, but he never cared what others thought. He would smile and say, "My wife is destined to do great things. Doing housework would only waste her talents. She was born for science, and I was born to support her so she can soar without worries." A year later, I got pregnant. Ryan immediately started studying baby care, determined to become the best dad he could be. One day, at the hospital with Ryan accompanying me for a prenatal checkup, I ran into Sophie, there by herself. Seeing her brought back a rush of memories, especially of the child I lost in my past life. That child died on this very same day in my previous life. He never came into this world, but even after my rebirth, that pain, the grief of losing a life that had barely begun, never truly faded. If I was able to come back, could my child somehow be given a second chance, too? In my past life, just as I arrived at the hospital for my checkup, I received a frantic phone call from Ethan. He had a major contract to sign, but had forgotten an important document. He demanded I bring it to him within 20 minutes. From the east side of the city to the west, 20 minutes was a stretch for anyone, let alone a woman 7 months pregnant. But for Ethan, I grit my teeth and agreed. It was pouring outside that day. As the heavy rain fell, my vision blurred, not just from the weather, but from tears I didn't even realize were forming. After all, it was that very storm and my rush through it that led to my fall. I remembered how I had clutched my belly in pain, handing Ethan the document, only to be met with his cold, irritated eyes. That was the moment I broke. I felt a warm rush of blood down my legs, collapsed on the ground, and blacked out. The baby was gone. And Ethan? All he said was, "Blood on signing day? Damn bad luck." Would Sophie, like me in the previous life, suffer the same fate? Without another thought, I bolted past Ryan's calls and chased after her out of the hospital. In a crowd at the corner of the street, I heard a woman's cry, a sound that pierced through me like a blade. My heart clenched violently, like someone was squeezing it with bare hands. I pushed through the crowd with everything I had, and there she was, Sophie, lying in a puddle, clutching her stomach in pain. Horror and panic surged through me. I froze, rooted in place. I couldn't tell if the water blurring my eyes was from the rain or my own tears. Just then, Ryan caught up and pulled me tightly into his arms. "Call an ambulance. Take her to the hospital. Now." I screamed, my voice hoarse. It was like I was watching my past self lying there again, drenched and helpless in the rain. The emergency room doors finally opened, and the doctor announced she was brought in just in time. "Both the mother and baby are safe." I sat down in the waiting area, exhausted, shoulders trembling as I broke down in quiet sobs. Why? Why was I ever so foolish in my last life? Why did I force myself to endure that pain just to deliver a document for Ethan? Why didn't he take me to the hospital right away? Only now do I see it clearly. Ethan and his so-called big deals were always more important than me or my child. We were nothing but stepping stones to his success. After Sophie was discharged, she came to the institute to find me. "Emily," she said, "I came to thank you." Her smile held an awkward mix of gratitude and guilt. Before she married Ethan, she would still greet me politely. But after they got married, she took on Ethan's arrogance and began treating me like an enemy. That day, if it hadn't been for you, my baby and I might not have made it. Her eyes suddenly turned red. "Does Ethan know what happened?" I asked. The moment I mentioned his name, her tears began to fall. "He knows. He yelled at me for messing up his important business. He said I brought bad luck." Her voice shook. To him, the contract mattered more than me or the baby. He said, "You're a grown woman. How can you not even handle something as simple as delivering a document?" Sophie broke down in sobs. "He didn't care about the company, not even a shred of responsibility. In my past life, Ethan said the exact same thing about me. I used to believe it was my fault, that I had been careless, that I had lost our child because of something I did wrong. Night after night, I tossed and turned in regret and shame. Every time I closed my eyes, my hand would instinctively rest on my stomach, as if the baby were still there. But Ethan, he treated my pain like a story to entertain others. Like some emotional keynote speaker, he told client after client about his rise to success, how I lost sight in one eye, and how our unborn child was lost in the rain while I was delivering a contract. And with each retelling, he noticed people's sympathy growing. And so did his orders. The more sympathy he received, the more he exploited my wounds, reopening them again and again. And I, like a fool, kept bleeding and didn't even know it. I could only cry silently in the dark. There were so many employees in the company, I asked Sophie, though I was really speaking to the girl I used to be. Why did it have to be you who delivered the document? Why would he let you go out in the pouring rain, heavily pregnant, and not feel a thing? You could hire a logistics person for 3,500 yuan a month. Why did it have to be his wife? Sophie looked at me, confused, but I already knew the answer. Because no employee would work harder than a wife. Because a wife could clean the house and run company errands, all while smiling. And that 3,500 yuan salary, he could cancel it at any time. No contracts, no labor disputes. I was the one who lost her vision. I was the one who suffered the most. And in the end, he was the one who gained everything. "If you had to do it all over again," I asked quietly, "would you still marry him?" Sophie's face darkened. She seemed to realize something. So that's why you divorced him? I nodded firmly. Now that your baby is safe, live well, not just for your child, but for yourself. We women are not accessories to any man. You're a college graduate, you should shine in your own light. In the distance, I saw Ryan walking toward me with a lunchbox in hand. I smiled and waved. Sophie caught the moment, and the confusion in her eyes cleared, replaced by something soft and thoughtful. After I gave birth, Ryan took a year-long leave of absence to become a full-time stay-at-home dad. Once my maternity leave ended, I was appointed deputy director of the Research Institute, its youngest senior official ever. On our child's first birthday, we held a celebration banquet at a hotel. Just as we were about to head in, I unexpectedly ran into Ethan again. Just like in the past, he was holding his childhood sweetheart's arm as they strolled into the hotel, laughing and flirting. But this time, I was nothing more than a bystander. I watched as Sophie's parents and the village chief furiously scolded Ethan. It wasn't long before the group broke out into a physical fight. In the chaos, Ethan's childhood sweetheart was shoved past the barrier and fell into the river, quickly disappearing into the current. It was just like the moment I had drowned in my previous life. Ethan, in his panic, lost his footing on the elevated riverbank and tumbled off the edge. A car happened to pass by and struck him, flinging him more than 2 m across the pavement. Half a year later, I saw Ethan again. His right eye was blind. Both of his legs had been amputated. His gaze was dull, lifeless. He sat motionless in a wheelchair like a corpse that could still breathe. But the moment he saw me, his face suddenly lit up. Emily, I had a dream. In our past life, we loved each other. We even had a child. I poured an entire of mineral water over his head. Wake up, Ethan. Anyone who marries you is cursed. A selfish man like you doesn't deserve a happy marriage. No woman should ever be your puppet or your possession. We weren't born just to cook and clean. I let out everything I had buried deep in my heart, every word cutting through the silence. No, Emily, I really did love you. Ethan tried to lift his body, struggling, but his legs betrayed him. With a dull thud, he collapsed hard to the ground. Looking at Ethan's limp body on the ground, I felt a rush of satisfaction unlike anything I'd ever known. Director Taylor, we're over here. Ryan called out, holding our daughter in his arms, waving to me from not far away. In this life, I was lucky. I had broken free from Ethan, married Ryan, and reached the peak of my career. So, no, I didn't do housework. And I never